Okay, sa videong ito, ang pag-uusapan natin ay one-sided limits. So, i-consider natin ang piecewise defined function na f of x is equal to square root of the quantity 2 minus x plus 5 for x is less than 2. And the second piece, square root of x minus 2 plus 3 if x is greater than 2. So, dalawang piece tayo. So, kunin natin yung function value sa unang piece. If x is equal to 2. Kasi di ba, ang ginagawa natin from the previous video, kukuha tayo ng value approaching that 2. So, approaching that 2, let us try to evaluate f of 2. So, pag sinubstitute natin, magkakaroon tayo ng 2 minus the value of x is 2 plus 5. Then f of 2 here is equal to 2 minus 2 is 0. Square root of 0 is 0 plus 5. F of 2 here is equal to 5. Doon naman sa kanan, kasi galing yan doon sa greater than 2. So, pakanan, galing tayo sa kanan. So, f of 2 here is equal to square root of 2 minus 2 plus 3. Then, f of 2 here is equal to 3. So, kung titingnan natin yung kanyang graph, yung coming from the left, that is less than 2, papunta siya sa value na equal to 5. And, for x, f of 2, galing sa kanan, ang value na ina-approach niya ay equal sa 3. And take note na meron tayong hole dito because 2 is not included from the domain. At dito naman sa coming sa right, 2 is not also included dun sa ating domain. So as you can see here, meron tayong notation na x approaches to naka-superscript yung plus. Meaning to say, galing siya from the right. Whereas ito namang x approaches to minus, meron tayong negative na parang exponent. So, yun naman yung galing sa kaliwa. Ang tawag dyan ay limit na galing sa kaliwa ay left-hand limit or left-sided limit at yung galing naman sa kanan ay right-sided limit or right-hand limit. So, puntahan natin ang formal definition. A left-hand limit of a function f, symbolically written as limit of f of x as x approaches c minus. So, gamit ang from the left, c minus is equal to L. Is the limit of f of x as x approaches c from the left, that is, x is less than c, as seen dun sa previous slide. Likewise, the right-hand limit of the function written as limit of f of x as x approaches c plus, coming from the right, is m, is the limit of f of x as x approaches c from the right. So that is for x is greater than c. So for x is greater than c from the right, for x is less than c from the left. So let us try to have this example. So if f of x is equal to 2x minus 5, for x is less than 3, and 4 minus x, for x is equal to or greater than 3, kunin natin ang limit as f of x approaches 3 minus. So ano yung galing sa 3 minus? Yun yung coming from the left of x is equal to 3. So if we try to substitute f of 3, which is equal to 2 times 3 minus 5, that gives us 6 minus 5, that is equal to 1. So the value it approached from the left of x is equal to 3 is equal to 1. How about coming from the right of x is equal to 3? Substitute natin yung f of 3 dun sa second piece natin. 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. So, therefore, the value it approached also is equal to positive 1. So, kung i-graph natin yan, at x is equal to 3, 1, 2, 3. So, ang function value natin dito ay parehas equal sa 1. So, magkaibang line lang ito. So, ito yung 2x minus 5 na may slope na 2, tapos may intercept na negative 5. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, kung may intercept na negative 5, ito yung kanyang graph. For x is greater than equal to 5. And para naman dito sa it should be less than 3. So, pag ganito pala siya. X is less than 3. So, hindi dapat yung portion na to. Kasi yung may graph doon para sa x is greater than equal to 3 ay 4 minus x. By the way, dito sa portion na to, sa piece na yung 2x minus 5, hindi included yung 3. Pero, since parehas sila ng value at x is equal to 3, magkakaroon ulit tayo dito ng shaded portion. Kasi sinalo siya nung pangalawang piece na 4 minus x. So, ano naman tong 4 minus x? Ang slope niyan ay negative na mayroong y-intercept na 4. So, pag ganito siya. So, ang graph ng function na yan ay, let us try to have a black color. 2, 3, 4. Yan. So, yan yung ating magiging graph ng f of x na yan. So, as you can see, it's not a function. So, hindi siya magiging function. Okay? So, let's proceed with the next one. Example number 2, the graph of f of x is shown below. So, evaluate the limit of f of x as x approaches 1 minus. So, this is from the left of x is equal to 1. So, as shown in the graph, so from the left of x equals 1, the value it approach is positive 1. So, yung value na ina-approach niya ay f of 1 is equal to 1. So, therefore, this is positive 1. Whereas, yung limit of f of x as x approaches 1 plus, galing naman sa kanan, ang value na ina-approach niya ay equal sa 2. So, f of 1 from the right, 1 plus, this is 1 minus, is equal to 2. So, therefore, ang sagot natin dito ay equal sa 2. So, titingnan lang natin yung graph galing sa kanan, saan siya pumupunta. Anong tinutumbok as we traverse the line here from the right, at yung parabola na y is equal to x squared as we traverse papunta sa x is equal to 1. So, that is coming from the left. So, therefore, limit of f of x as x approaches 1 minus is equal to 1, or left hand limit, and for the right hand limit of f of x, that is equal to 2. So, for example, number 3, we have given that f of x is equal to 1 minus x all over x plus 2. So, kung i-graph natin yan, so kung titingnan natin yung behavior, so ang domain ng function, x must not be equal to 2, negative 2 I mean. So, this will be our boundary. So, kapag ang value natin ng x coming from the left, negative 2 minus, so galing siya dito sa kaliwa. So, kung galing sa kaliwa, let's say negative 3. So, if x is negative 3, substitute natin, f of negative 3 is equal to 1 minus negative 3, that's 1 plus 3, all over negative 3 plus 2. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So, ang value na makukuha natin ay negative. So, ibig sabihin, habang lumalapit tayo kay negative 2, ang value natin ay nagiging more negative up to negative infinity. So, that's why, ang value natin ay negative infinity, which does not exist. So, ang sagot natin dyan ay hindi nag-e-exist kasi nga asymptotic siya at x is equal to negative 2. Kasi yung value natin kapag lumalapit tayo, pag nag-substitute pa tayo, say for example, negative 2.5. So, pag negative 2.5, that is 1 minus negative 2.5 is negative 1.5 all over negative 2.5. Sorry, this should be positive 3.5. Kasi 1 minus negative 2.5, you change the sign of the subtrahend. So, magiging 3.5 all over negative 0.5. So, this is negative 7. So, kung ito ay negative 4, ito ay negative 7, so, it becomes more negative habang lumalapit siya dun sa value na x is equal to negative 2. So, therefore, the limit of f of x as x approaches negative 2 minus is does not or is equal to negative infinity or approximately equal to negative infinity, which does not exist. So, ang sagot natin, does not exist. DNE is short for does not exist. So, limit naman ng f of x coming from the right. So, let's get negative 1. So, pag nag-substitute tayo, 1 minus negative 1 is 1 plus 1. So, pag sinubstitute natin ang negative 1, so, 1 plus 1 all over negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1. So, this becomes 2. Let's get negative 1.5. So, pag gumamit tayo ng negative 1.5, 1 minus negative 1.5 becomes 2.5 over negative 1.5 plus is 0.5. So, this becomes 5 na kapag ka f of negative 1.5. Ang value ay nagiging positive 5. So, as you can see, as it gets closer to negative 2, it becomes more positive. So, ang function value natin ay becomes more positive. So, the value it approach is positive infinity. But since you can never reach that infinity, so ang answer natin also is the limit does not exist. So, the limit does not exist since hindi defined yung value na ina-approach niya. Then, let's have another definition here. The limit of a function f as x approaches c is equal to L if the left-hand limit and the right-hand limits are equal to L. So, meaning to say, kapag same yung value coming from the left and coming from the right, dun lang natin masasabi na limit exists and that is equal to L itself. So, otherwise, the limit does not exist. So, meaning to say, kung magkaiba yung value na in-approach niya, meaning to say, hindi nag-e-exist ang limit niya. Balikan natin yung example number 2. So, ang example number 2 natin, limit of f of x as x approaches negative 1 is equal to 1, and limit of f of x as x approaches 1 positive or the right-hand limit is equal to 2. So, as you notice, the left-hand limit is not equal to the right-hand limit. Thus, ang limit of f of x as x approaches positive 1, wala na tayong minus na superscript at saka positive na superscript since ang kinukuha na natin as x approaches 1. This does not exist for which or because yung limit na ina-approach nila from the left and from the right ay hindi magkaparehas na value. So, obviously, ang example number 3 does not exist then kasi yung coming from the left, negative infinity, yung coming from the right, positive infinity. So, hindi sila nagja-jive or nagtatagpo sa iisang value. So, that is this definition is telling us. So, let us try to Consider this function f of x whose graph is shown below. So this was taken from the teaching guide for senior high school ng basic calculus ng DepEd. So given this graph, so determine natin yung limit ng f of x as x approaches negative 3. So ano ang ating titingnan? Yung left hand limit at saka yung right hand limit. If limit of f of x as x approaches negative 3 minus is equal to limit of f of x as x approaches negative 3 plus, ibig sabihin, ang limit ay nag-e-exist. Dapat yung makukuha nating value, yun yung real valued function value na makukuha natin. So let us try. If x is equal to negative 3, so hanapin natin yung negative 3. So if this is the origin, ito yung negative 1, ito yung negative 2, ito yung negative 3. So if this is x is equal to negative 3, tingnan lang natin yung value it approach from the left. So from the left, ang value na ina-approach ay equal sa 1. Coming from the right, ang value na ina-approach ay also equal to 1. So ang value na ina-approach coming from the left ay equal sa 1. This is the value, which is 1. And coming from the right is also the same value ang ina-approach, though this is not defined at x is equal to negative 3. Pero ang value pa-close, as we get closer to that x is equal to negative 3, iisa ang pinupuntong or pinupuntahan nilang dalawa, which is equal to positive 1. So therefore, limit of f of x as x approaches negative 3 is equal to 1. So how about limit of f of x as x approaches negative 1? So hanapin natin ang negative 1. So ito yung origin, ito yung negative 1. Coming from the left, ang ina-approach niya ay positive 1. Coming from the right, as we traverse this parabola, ang pinupuntahan niyang value ay equal sa 3. This is 3, this is 1. So therefore, the limit does not exist. Since yung coming from the left ay 1, ang coming from the right ay positive 3. So hindi sila nagtatagpo. So therefore, the limit does not exist. How about for letter C? F of x as x approaches 1. So tingnan natin ulit ang 1. So ito yung origin, ito yung x is equal to 1. So from the left, that's negative 1. From the right, that's negative 1. So tumatagpo sila sa iisang value na ito, that is equal to negative 1. How about for f of x is equal to 3 or approaching x approaching 3? So approaching 3, ito yung x equals 3. So ang value coming from the left na pinupuntahan niya ay positive 3. Ang coming from the right, ang pinupuntahan niya ay 0. So since yung from the left ay 3, from the right is 0, therefore the limit does not exist. Because magkaiba, again, ang tinutumbok nila papunta sa x is equal to 3. How about for x is equal to 5? For x is equal to 5, ito yon. So the value it approach from the left, the value it approach from the right, ay same value which is equal to 5. So thus, the limit of f of x as x approaches 5 is equal to 5. So that's how we find the limit. So again, limit exists if and only if the limit of f of x as x approaches c minus is the same as the limit of f of x as x approaches c plus. Meaning, the left hand limit must be the same as the right hand limit bago natin masabi na ang limit ay nag-e-exist. So that's the end of today's presentation.